Okay, welcome to this video. This video is going to be in two parts into one. So it's all just this one long video, but it's two. Essentially, I recorded two videos, but I put them back to back, and I'm just recording this little intro just to explain. Essentially, the first part is going to be following up on yesterday's video where I started speaking about solipsism. And in the first part of this video, I'm going deeper into the mechanics of how solipsism can be true, even whilst it's so difficult to realize that or accept it. Even if you do realize why it's so difficult to accept it and how the mechanics of that could work. But the second half of this video is more of a disclaimer. You could say I should have released that one first, but I recorded it after the first part of this video and yesterday's video. After I'd watched a few videos of other people speaking on solipsism, and essentially I'm not saying that what you're going to hear in this video is wrong or anything. I still stand by everything I said. It's just that when people adopt solipsism as a belief system or some kind of ideology, then it can be very dangerous. So the second part of this video is essentially me kind of giving a disclaimer as to why you shouldn't just believe what I say or what anyone says, and why it's very dangerous to take solipsism on as some kind of belief system or ideology. However, at the same time, I still stand by the statement that solipsism is true. And in the first half of this video, you'll see how I'm go further in depth as to how the mechanics of that works, similarly to my last video. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that there and enjoy. Okay, I'm gonna make another video. I recorded a video yesterday, which I'll release before this, where I was speaking about boredom or existential boredom. And it kind of led into speaking about solipsism and so on. And I've already explained in my past videos the nature of thoughts, how consciousness is an optical illusion, how God constructs reality, all these kinds of things where I've suggested that, in a sense, all of creation is creation through deception, and appearances are the only thing that can appear. Like, there can't actually be something of substance being created. You can create an appearance which appears to have substance, but you can't actually create like matter. Even matter is an appearance. So there's infinite variety of appearances, more subtle light density appearances, like a thought or an imagination, and then more stark, dense appearances like matter or you know what I'm saying, like your bones and a brick wall. You might say that's matter, but it's just a more solid appearance. Even in your dreams at night, let's say you're running away or you're chasing someone, and let's say you're in a building, like you're in a corridor. You might have dreams where you've ran through walls, but usually you're going to run down the corridor because you assume that those walls are solid, even though they were just made out of your brain synapses. Even they weren't really created by the brain synapses, but let's just speak from the relative dream level. Like, as a human, you just dreamed up that dream, right? In your brain, supposedly. So it was just kind of made up by synapses or whatever the fuck. So those walls weren't real. Even if you say, I ran through the walls, but then the ground you stood on, like, it presupposed that was solid. And then even if you fell through the ground, then it presupposes that there was gravity or whatever. So essentially, there can be the appearance of solidity, but it's not really solid. And I've explained that everything is just an appearance. And if you've watched my solipsism video, then you'll realize, yes, that you are the only self. you are the only thing that exists, or you don't really exist, but you're the only thing that's true. And that's why I always emphasize truth, and how truth is more fundamental than existence, because we usually say, oh, like things can exist, like things may be true or not true, but like existence is more fundamental. But actually no, because see, what people are speaking about when they say existence is actually the absolute truth. Like I already explained that in my last video, but the point that I want to make is that if what I'm saying is true, and there's only you as God imagining everything, so everything you see is your own dream, and and if I am saying that solipsism is right, there are a few things that you might say, oh, but like, yeah, there's other humans, and kind of when I go sleep and then wake back up, the world is still kind of the same, but it seems like things have passed without me, and or at least they're essentially everything in your life that you've experienced. If you take this to be reality, this dream, if you take this to be reality, everything you see suggests that you're not the only being in existence. And like, why is that? Like, how could it seem like you're just one of many? How could it seem like there's a world here, like there's Earth, then there's like the solar system and a million different galaxies and a million different organisms and species, when in fact you're the only conscious being? Like, how could that be? And how could you fall for that? Like, if this is all an illusion, then how could you fall for that? Especially as God. Like, if I'm saying you have infinite intelligence, infinite consciousness, like, how could you fall for that? See, this dream or appearance that's being constructed is not being constructed by someone else. It's being constructed by you. And as I said, yes, you as God have an infinite capacity for imagination, remembrance, forgetfulness. You have infinite capacity to create any image. So the appearances that you create can be to a very, very high level. Like, when I say this is a dream, yes, it is a dream, but I'm not saying it's like some low level dream. Like, this is like the highest level simulation. Like, I think I might put in the beginning of this video, like some of the games that AI and so on are creating now, where it literally is almost indistinguishable from reality. Of course, one of the main tricks is just the congruency of the dream. That's one of the main tricks, is the laws. Like, they're very consistent. So you might say in a nighttime dream they're inconsistent and so on. But then even in those dreams you don't wake up. And I've explained in my past video that it's because you don't have anything to contrast against. When you're in that dream, that's the only thing that exists. And same way now, you think, oh, when you're in real life, like this is also a dream, but you don't have any other dream now to compare it against. So that's one thing. And as I said, the consistency and the congruency of it is another thing. But those are just how any high level simulation is going to be. If you play a game on PlayStation, you know that that's just a game. It's just a simulation. It's not real, right? But the game, if it's a good game, it's going to be consistent with itself. It's going to, the game is going to be consistent with the form or the appearance that it's taking. Otherwise, it's not a good game. It's shit. You're just going to say it's glitching and so on. So, yes, this is an appearance, but this is an appearance that God created with the very sole purpose to deceive itself. So, you have infinite capacity for deception, but obviously you have infinite capacity for consciousness. So, the simulation that you would have to create to deceive yourself has to be the highest level. And the whole point of this video is that actually one of the main tricks that God uses, or that you are using to delude yourself into thinking that this is real life, one of the main tricks that you're doing right now is you're creating unfalsifiable illusions. So, for example, let's say something is an illusion, like a magic trick. Let's say I do a magic trick, and then first time you don't see how I did it. It just looks like magic to you. You're thinking, what? Like, I just took a card out of nowhere. And then after I show you how I did it, and then, I just had another card up my sleeve or something like that. Then you're going to realize, it wasn't really all that. Then you're going to see through the illusion, because magic, anything seems magical to you if you don't understand it. Once you understand it, you realize, it's not even magical. It's just like a mechanical thing. It's just a process. Once you understand the process, it's not magical anymore, right? So there's that. And then if I tell you how to do the trick, then you're going to see through the illusion. See, that's an illusion, but that's a falsifiable illusion. Now, imagine an illusion that you can never falsify. You can never prove it wrong. Like the existence of other conscious beings. See, you can see a human being, right? But it's impossible to ever know if they're conscious. Most people with your conscious, you would agree with that. You would agree that, yes, it's impossible to know that they're conscious, but then you still might fall for the trap thinking that they are conscious because it seems that way. And also, see, you can't prove that they're not conscious, but instead of saying, okay, then they're most certainly not conscious. If I can't prove that they're conscious, they're most certainly not conscious. Instead of saying that, you'll say, yes, I can't prove that they're also conscious, but they're very similar to me, so most likely they are conscious. If I ask them a question, they respond. So they must be conscious to be able to respond, right? Or, for example, the idea of a God, an external God. That's another unfalsifiable illusion, because even though we can't prove that God exists, we can never disprove it. You can never disprove that God you can never prove that God doesn't exist. That's impossible, because there's always the potential that, oh, God does exist. You just haven't like gone far enough. You just didn't see it yet. You see? You just haven't like, you didn't have faith. You didn't pray enough. You didn't meditate enough. You need to do another psychedelic trip. Then you'll see it. You just need to go further. Like God does exist, or it could exist. You just haven't gone far enough, right? See, so unfalsifiability is one of the biggest tricks of this whole dream. That's one of the biggest tricks, because you really are the self. You really are the only thing that exists. So if you imagine that there's others, like, since you're the only conscious being in existence, and you can never escape your own consciousness, it's not like you can just skip from your consciousness to another consciousness. So even if there are other human beings or animals or whatever which seem to be conscious, since you can't escape your own consciousness, because really you are the only consciousness, and your consciousness is absolute, but you don't know that, yeah. And because your consciousness is absolute, it's impossible to experience another consciousness, because your consciousness is the only consciousness. But then you're going to rationalize, see, because you still think within this dream as a human that your consciousness is conditional. You think that your consciousness like is contingent, like it's coming from your brain. You think like if this human body dies, the consciousness will be gone, or like if I hit my head, like I'll lose consciousness. And you actually won't lose consciousness. It's impossible to lose consciousness. It will just change the content of the consciousness. It will change the content. It won't change consciousness. That's why there's not even levels of consciousness. That's in the dream. Like high consciousness, low consciousness, that's still in the dream. There's no levels of consciousness. There's only consciousness. So because your consciousness is all that there is, there's no other consciousness to experience. But then you can always just tell yourself or rationalize to yourself that, yes, I can never like experience another consciousness, but I can also never say for certain that there are no other consciousnesses. Do you get what I'm saying? Because it's literally the same analogy as God, as I said with God, or even demons and angels. We could say, oh, they're in like the spiritual realm, or like they're in the, they're affecting this human realm, but we just can't see them. They're like on higher level than us. See, that's another falsifiable illusion. You can never prove that angels exist or demons, even if it appears to you, or even if it appears to 100 people. You still can't prove that exists. How do you know that all of you didn't like hallucinate that? See, even if you all saw it, you all agreed, how are you going to prove that? How are you going to prove that an angel exists? So first of all, even if you see it and it appears, you still can't prove its existence. You can only believe it. And most of all is angels aren't going to appear. Or demons aren't going to appear. And then even if you tell yourself, like, as a human, like let's say you're religious and you believe in angels and demons, even if you've never seen them, why will you believe in it? Why would you fall for that trap? Because even though you can never see them and prove them, you can never disprove them. So then essentially it's the doubt and the uncertainty. It uses doubt and uncertainty. How can I put it? So you realize that you exist, right? Really, that's just the self. Really, that's just the self. You don't actually exist as a human. Even your human body is just an appearance. It's like an overlay. right? But you exist. You know that for certain. You don't exist as a human, but you think you exist as a human. So you're thinking, all right, cool. Yes, angels and demons could be quite far-fetched, might be out there. But even my own existence as a human, like, even that's out there. Even that's crazy. Like how did I get here? Like, I come from nothing. It's a miracle, right? So if that happened, what's to stop like angels and demons happening? You see what I'm saying? And then because you're uncertain, you're going to be more inclined to say they probably do exist just because there's the potentiality that they exist, and because I exist, which is a miracle, then it's more than likely that they do exist. That's kind of like how you're thinking about it. But where you went wrong is thinking that you even exist as a human. You don't. And even the potentiality for them to exist is that actually there's no potential, or there is a potential, but the only potential for them to exist is for them to exist in your imagination. If you imagine that demons and angels exist, they exist to you. And you are the only thing that is real. So I'm not saying, if you imagine them and believe in them, then they exist for you, but they don't exist for others. There's no others. There's like no one else. There's only you here right now. So that's how you're the arbiter of truth. You have the ultimate authority. Every single time you took something to be true or you believed something, it was you that decided that. Even if someone, it was always someone external, or supposedly external, who suggested it to you, like a human. I could suggest this to you. You have the power to. I'm not even telling you to believe it, because you don't even need to believe this for this to be true, because the truth is true by itself anyway. So if you just look closely enough, you'll realize it. So you don't even need to believe me. However, if you're operating from the mind, then really all you can do is believe me or disbelieve me. So I can suggest this to you. You have the power to believe it or not. You have the power to decide if it's true or not. And then see, it only seems like, but then that's just like me making things up, or like that's just my opinion. That seems like, that's only my opinion if you still believe that there are other humans who could have another opinion, or that there are other like humans, or that there's an external world which could be different to the way that I perceive it. But actually, the appearances is all that there is. There's no external world. As I've proved to you, there's no out there. There's no matter. There's no physical world that you're perceiving through your five senses. You don't have senses. You've never had senses. Senses is part of the illusion. You don't have that. You don't have senses. See, you're imagining right now that you have senses, which is making it seem like you have senses. And because there's no one else here to tell you what it is, even me, you're imagining me. And then you see right now in this instant, you're deciding if you did imagine me or you didn't imagine me. See, you're deciding it right now. You're also deciding if matter exists or it doesn't exist. You're deciding if gods exist or they don't exist. You're deciding right now if demons exist or they don't exist. And if you decide they exist, then they exist. As an imagination, as an appearance, which is all that there can be. As I said, even matter, even everything, the external world, you're imagining that. There's no external world if you don't imagine it right now. So you're the only, really, if you're being completely honest with yourself, you know that you're the only person that exists. And actually it's fear. You don't want to admit, but it's fear. You don't want it to be true. You don't want to only be the only person that there is. You don't want to, like, it's fear. When, like, right now, if you're kind of rejecting this or you're feeling uncomfortable, it's because actually you're thinking, wait. So, like, but wait. If what he's saying is right, then see, all the consequences of that is very radical. It will change your whole life. If what I'm saying is right, then everything is your responsibility. There's no one else to blame. And if what I'm saying is right, then you're going to have to accept the absoluteness of your own nature and the eternal nature of your own self. The fact that you've always been here. You was never a human. Like, you was never born. You was never unconscious. You've always been conscious. And when I'm saying you've been conscious for eternity, if you're thinking about that from the mind or the ego's perspective, then that's going to seem like you're going to start projecting back and think that eternity is a long time. But eternity is not even a long time. 1 millisecond and 1,000,000 years is the same thing. It just zooms in and out, and it just matters where you reference, where you measure it from. So, see, being conscious for 1 second is the same as being conscious for eternity, because, like, there's no time. Time is not progressing right now. You're conscious right now, right? Realize that there's no future for you to, like, progress into. Like, it's not like you just came from there and then now, so if I'm conscious for eternity, then, like, it's gonna, like, I'm gonna be conscious for a long, long time. Like, no. Even though, no, like, actually, no, you're only gonna be conscious for this moment, but this moment never ends. It never ends. Like, it's just this moment. Eternity essentially just means an unending, just the unending present moment. That's basically eternity. And then, if what I'm saying is right, then you're going to realize, wait, so my parents, I, as God, imagined my parents, I imagined that they existed to create a backstory to explain. See, you're going to realize I created this human appearance, this human body appearance. Then I created 2 other humans, my parents. And then you created a backstory saying that they, like, had sex and created you. So you imagined your parents, your teachers from primary school, from secondary school. You imagined all of those. All the other humans, even all the gods, you imagined those. Space, the Milky Way. Like, whatever, if you go on, like, Instagram or the internet or something, and then it shows you some faraway galaxy, Andromeda X or something. You imagined that. And then you imagined that there was some other scientist who discovered that. To make it seem like you're not the only person in existence. You created your parents to make it seem like you're not the only person in existence. You imagined that guru. That guru who told you some stuff, and me, like Nathaniel, who told you some stuff. You're imagining me. See, you're God. You're imagining yourself as a human who's listening to another human who's telling you the truth to remind you that you're God again. See, how does God awaken to itself? See, people assume that God would know that. People assume that God would always know that it's God. People assume that God would have to know. that it is God, right? But see, where they go wrong is that they still think that God, like the way, as I said, because your mind works in a limited nature, it's always in a relative fashion, it's always by comparison, because that's all your mind knows. You can't create anything through comparison. So this whole idea of an external God or something, like they still think that God is like, yeah, see, they assume that God is almost, they will tell you that God is like, is all knowing, all powerful, everywhere, and all of this stuff. They'll say that, but really they still think of God as like a limited being. Because to exist, like they say, like God is real, like God exists. That's what they say. They say God exists. To exist already means you're limited. So see, they act as if there's God and then there's things that aren't gods. They'll say, oh, God is everything, but then they still act like, if you tell a Christian you're God, they're gonna start saying blasphemy. As if it doesn't say in the Bible that God is everywhere and everything. So that's already a contradiction. But see, they'll say that because it sounds nice, but then they'll still act as if God is separate to them. And as if it exists as its own like self, as a limited being. See, and then that's why they imagine that God would know that it is God, because then it would be able to contrast against the humans and everything else that's not God, and then be like, I'm God, they're not God. But no, God is actually is true that God is everywhere and everything. So it's absolute. So it has no opposite. So what can it compare and contrast against? It has nothing to compare and contrast against. So that's why it has to incarnate into this false world of illusion to, even though this is it as well, but it's appearing as if it isn't. So it has to at least experience an appearance of what it isn't, to then compare and contrast and realize what it is. So the way God would actually see, when you awaken, if you have God realization, if you awaken to yourself as being God, that literally is God awakening to itself. Do you understand? It's not like there's like some external God that was always awakened, and then now you're just like a section of God that's realizing you're just a part of the whole. See, that's where certain people, they start thinking they're spiritual, and then they'll be like, yeah, like we're all part of the universal self, but like, oh, like we're just like little parts of it and of the whole and all of that stuff. Like I'm a part of God, but I'm not. Like, see, they're saying, oh yeah, like, because it sounds spiritual and stuff. It sounds nice, sounds good, but then they still don't want to really go. They don't really want to like enter the deep waters and enter the real consequences of realizing, no, they are God. They're the whole of it. They're everything. They still want to act like they're just a piece. But you're the whole God, and there's no there's no opposite to you. Everything you experience is yourself. So the only way you would realize yourself to be God is you would incarnate into a human being form, limited form, which supposedly isn't God. And then you would imagine another like human being, limited form, who you would then give the label as enlightened or self-realized, and you would imagine them to have the truth, and then you would have them teach you. And then it would seem like you're learning from an external source, but actually they're you imagine them. Like you imagine them. Like if you... This is where you actually even have to start letting go of like the idea of gurus and like that some guru's gonna save you. Like no guru can enlighten you. Like you are the absolute self. You have all the authority. So the only reason why you even think that they're enlightened and above you is because you, as the self with the power, believe it and you're pushing them up. You could just as equally as chop them down. See, if you like need to believe what they're saying for what they're saying to have any power, then it's just a make believe. It's just a subjective. It's just a relative truth. It's not the absolute. Like, if I need you to believe me for what I'm saying to be true, then what I'm saying is not absolutely true. Obviously, that's why I'm saying you don't need to believe me, because even whether you believe me or not, the truth will still be true anyway. It doesn't even matter. I'm just trying to like wake you up. And I'm you. I'm you. Like I'm not anyone else. You're imagining me right now. And then you might say, oh yeah, I am imagining you, but you really are still there behind the curtains, made out of atoms. See, if you subscribe to the physical paradigm, matter, time, space, if you think that those things are absolute reality, you will never, ever, ever understand what I'm saying. You can only misunderstand. Debunk materialism, realize that matter doesn't exist. There's no units that this is made out of. It's not made out of like loads of units bottom up. Realize that there's no time. When have you ever been in tomorrow? When have you ever been yesterday? Have you ever experienced a yesterday? Have you ever experienced a tomorrow? Even space. Space is made up. It's a measurement of nothing. You can create up how many units you want. Like space doesn't exist. Like where does space begin and end? Where does it begin and end? Like show me. Show me where space, like where is space? Where does it begin? Where does it end? See, it's so obvious to you that this present here now moment is all that there is. Your consciousness is all you have access to. Your own self is the only thing you can be certain to be true. That's like your base, that's your base reality, is just that you have so many like overlaid stories and backstories that suggest otherwise, because you've been so conditioned by yourself. You conditioned yourself through humans that you imagined, but at the time you imagined that you weren't imagining them, and you imagined that they really existed, as opposed to like that you were just imagining them. You imagined that they were physical beings on Earth. Like Earth doesn't exist. Earth is a thought. You're thinking right now, Earth. You're imagining a picture in your head. That picture is not Earth. There's no Earth. That distinction, like when you go on an aeroplane and then you look at the rock and then you see that that distinction, you're imagining that distinction. There's not even a line there. See, if you think like, see this, even this doesn't exist. That, see, your brain is acting like this has an edge or like a boundary. But see, what is, all right, cool. Let's say that this is let's say that this remote is separate from my hand, right? Normal people would say that. They'll say that this is a remote, like that's your hand, that's two separate things. So what is the boundary that separates those two things? What is that made out of, that boundary? It's made out of your imagination. You're imagining it right now. If you don't imagine it, these two things are exactly the same. There's no difference. Where's the boundary? Every single boundary is an overlay that you're imagining right now. And if you don't imagine it right now, it doesn't exist. But yeah, I want to bring it back again and just really reiterate that it's the unfalsifiable illusions. That's really is the cherry on the cake. That's what will keep on getting you to buy back into the dream. Because then you might say, oh, but wait, but maybe there really is another God. I just still need to find it. Maybe there really are demons and stuff. Like, we still need to beware. Because even if I can't prove they exist, I can't prove that they don't exist. So they still might. See, you created these illusions that you can never prove wrong. Just to keep you reinvesting. And until you actually admit that, wait, actually I am the only conscious being. I've never experienced an outside world. I've only experienced my own mind, my own imagination, my own consciousness. And if I don't see or think about Father Christmas, it doesn't exist. But if I think about it, it exists as an idea. If I say it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. If I say it exists, it exists. Because I'm the arbiter of truth. See, in a sense, because you're absolute, whatever you believe becomes the truth. And then see, as long as you believe that there is an external world or that there are others, then you might say, oh, but yes, I might believe it, and then it may seem true to me, but that perception may be inaccurate. But see, there's no perception. There's no subject and object split. There's no one perceiving. There's only appearances. Black is black. There's not even a subject perceiving it. Black is black. It's floating in an empty void like this. Like, you're not looking at it, and it's black anyway. There's no perception. That's what I'm saying. You still think that there's an external world, like something that you're looking at. Something other than your own self, but you're absolute. It's the unfalsifiable illusions that will keep you hooked forever if you don't acknowledge that you are the absolute self. If you don't acknowledge that, you will be trapped forever. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, as long as you think that there are others, as long as you think there's an external world that you're like born into, then you're just gonna be in this endless, like, you're just gonna be like a billiard ball, just being pinged around, ping, 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 pong, ping, pong, ping, pong, 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 ping, pong, from infinite different forces. Just one's just slapping you that way, and then another one's slapping you that way, and then you're just gonna be like a billiard ball, just getting pinged around forever. It will never end until you realize, oh wait, I imagined the billiard ball, I imagined the fucking table. I imagined the players playing it. I imagined the, you know what I'm saying? And they only exist if I say they exist. See, even if I know that this is absolutely true. I know this is true, right? But let's just say I was wrong. And you... as I said, I don't want you to believe me, but let's say you believed me and I was still wrong, realize that unless you're a psychopath and you try to use this to like start hurting and damaging people, which I'm not saying that you should do that at all. Because like if you just use that as an excuse, then you was just a psychopath anyway. You would have done it anyway. You just wanted an excuse. But realize that if you started looking at the world from this perspective, you wouldn't lose anything anyway, because it's not like the appearances are going to stop appearing. You're going to still imagine them anyway. So even if you acknowledge that your parents are imaginary, you're going to still imagine them, as long as you still imagine this form. And then if you stop imagining this form into existence, then there's not going to be any other forms at all. It's just going to just collapse back into an equilibrium, uniform field of nothingness. There's not going to be any like perception at all. There's not even going to be anything. So if you stop imagining this, then there's just nothing. And if you keep on imagining this form, then you're going to continue to imagine the other forms, because you can't even just only have one human form and no others, or like have others without this human form. No, you need both. You need the subjects and the objects. Either it's collapsed into complete non-duality, or you have both sides. You can't just only create a subject or only objects, because remember, it's the absolute that's getting split. Yeah, really, this is in a sense, I don't know if I'd say it's the deepest, but once you actually realize self-realization on a bare bones level, and you actually acknowledge, wait, actually, yes, I am absolute. And in a sense, yes, solipsism is true. Like, it really is true. I'm not saying you as a human are the only human that exists. No, like, you as the self, as God, you're the only thing that exists. And I'm not saying you as God as like a small fragment, and then all those other humans are also fragments. You're imagining that as well. You can't even be certain that other humans exist. And that's what I'm saying. The unfalsified, like, just the fact that it's unfalsifiable, that you can ever really check if those other humans exist. See, because how are you going to check if they exist? Are you going to ask like an animal, a cow? The cow's going to tell you moo. If you ask another human, of course he's going to say yes. But then even if you go in a game and you ask an NPC who's been programmed to act as if he's not an NPC, he's going to tell you he's not an NPC. Does that mean he's not an NPC? I think you get the point now, so I'm going to leave that one there. But yeah, I would recommend maybe watching, especially that last video and this one. You might have to watch them 2 or 3 times. And you'll see, as I said, even if you deep down subconsciously know this is true, you don't actually want this to be true. Because that's why you imagined all of this. Because the truth isn't entertaining. It's not entertaining to realize that you're the only conscious being in existence and there's nothing other than yourself. That's not entertaining. It's entertaining if there's others. It's entertaining if there's theme parks and Netflix and beautiful women to have sex with. That's entertaining. So disregard what you want to be true and really check. Just check for yourself right now. Don't believe anything. Just really check. Wait, have I ever experienced anyone else's consciousness? Can I really conclude for certain that anyone else exists? Think about it. Alright, cool. I just wanted to make a video quickly. I didn't really prepare for this one, but it's a video that needs to be made. I did just recently record 2 videos, which I don't know, I might release this one first, but I'll probably release those ones and then release this one. because the main topics were solipsism. However, see, with solipsism, it's very, very tricky because it can become very dangerous if it's taken on as an ideology. Like, if you take it on as a belief, if you just believe in solipsism, then that can be extremely dangerous and lead to all kinds of terrible consequences and backlash. There's even been, well, many different people have spoken about solipsism. One of the teachers I used to watch, well, I still watch sometimes, but not as often. They don't release as often anyway. But Actualized, he even at one point released a video on solipsism, but he took it down. Some people have like re-uploaded it, but there's been many people who've also kind of reacted against that and so on. And I was just kind of re-watching my video that I recorded a day or two ago about solipsism, which I'm going to release probably tomorrow. I went quite deep and covered a lot of the mechanics of why it is like that. However, I didn't really give any disclaimers because I was actually in the first video where I spoke about it. I kind of just got led into that topic. I was speaking about something else, but then I had to kind of speak about solipsism to explain. So I didn't really have any disclaimers or anything prepared. And then in the second video, I was just going deeper on the mechanics and on how it can be true that solipsism is true, yet it's so difficult to decipher. And even if it's not this difficult to decipher, why it's so difficult to accept. But in this video, I want to focus more on just how it's like this. Again, I did reiterate in those videos that when I'm saying solipsism is true, I'm not speaking about on the human level as if you're just the only human that exists. I did make that clear. However, even still, even if you think like you can still take it on only as an ideology, and it can still be very dangerous, even if you think it's just the absolute self that's solipsistic, not on the human level, but humans aren't real and so on. So there's no consequences to my actions. I can do anything, or there's no meaning to anything. I should kill myself, and all of this kind of stuff. If solipsism is just believed and taken on as an ideology, then all of those things can happen, and it's extremely dangerous. That's why I have to kind of make this video. I did say many times I don't want you to believe me in that video as well, in those two videos, but the mind is tricky. Even if you could tell someone don't believe me and then they'll still believe you. Because as I said, when you're operating from the mind, which 99% of people are, the only thing you can do is believe or disbelieve. You're not even aware that there's other dimensions and tools that you could use within your consciousness, which are not your thoughts. See, when you're only operating from your thoughts, then you can only believe or disbelieve. And then if what I was saying was making sense to you, then you probably believed it. Even if you told yourself, I didn't believe it, I just know it to be true. But if you're thinking about it, then it's already still on the theoretical level and on the mind and ego level where you're believing it. And then that's where things can get very tricky and dangerous. And you might end up doing all kinds of evil things and rationalizing it to yourself that those people just don't exist, or my family and friends don't exist. I'm the only one that's here, so like I should kill myself or something like that. Like all of those things, you should never do any of those things. And that was not the intention of those videos. I was just kind of communicating what I myself have realized, and I was just expressing myself. And I just want to be as authentic and honest as possible. But at the same time, I don't want to kind of cause any negative consequences from that, or suggest people to do anything kind of crazy or immoral or unethical, using rationalizations that, oh, I'm the only human that exists, or even if you're saying I'm not the only human that exists, like I'm God and I'm imagining all the other humans, so who cares if I go on a slaughter spree or something like that. Like that, none of those things was what I was trying to say. So, as I said, you really cannot adopt solipsism as some kind of belief system or ideology. You can't do that. If it doesn't seem true to you, then just dismiss it. It doesn't matter. And further, it's a better route anyway to try and dismiss everything, as I've explained in my way earlier videos, the neti method, because the absolute truth can't be undermined anyway. So even if you disbelieve it, so believing things is just going to get you going in the wrong direction. It's always going to deviate you further away, because you can believe something that's false. But even if you disbelieve what's true, the truth, if it's absolute, will be true anyway. So it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. So don't go down the path of trying to believe and acting upon, like, based on that and rationalizing it. This is something you have to realize. And if you do realize this, then it will be beyond any doubt to you. It will be absolutely certain. And if you are psychologically stable, everything is aligned and balanced. You're not gonna do you won't harm people. You'll be treating people better, because you'll just be seeing everyone as your own self, because you'll realize the self is absolute. So you'll just be treating people better, even if in your own perception it doesn't really seem like they are a living sentient being, or like it will still seem that way. It'll still appear that way to you anyway. But like you wouldn't be. What I did say in one of those videos anyway is that, like, really you have to kind of be mentally ill or unstable to really use that rationalization to do something evil anyway. However, the problem about the internet is I can just post a video and anyone can see it. So I don't really have a big audience anyway, so it's not really that deep. I'm sure it's not like I'm actualized who has 1 million subscribers, and then even if 1% of his viewers misconstrue what he's trying to say, it can lead to insane consequences. Whereas me, I only have under 20 subscribers. But even still, I wanted to make that disclaimer. This whole video is essentially just a disclaimer. So I'm not backtracking and saying what I said in those past 2 videos was false. However, I just want to really reiterate and make it clear that you should not just adopt or believe these things as an ideology and start thinking. And you start thinking, oh yes, I am the only person. Like, you don't need to see if what I'm saying is absolutely true. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about it or not, or imagining it or not. It will still be the case anyway. So, and there's no other way that it could be. So there's nothing that you could do to prevent that anyway. So you don't need to believe it. And if what I'm saying is not true, then disbelieving it will help you as well. So you know what I'm saying. So just don't believe or start adopting these things as ideologies. If you realize it for your own self and it becomes absolutely certain, then no matter what I say to you won't make you like believe it more or disbelieve it, or at that point, it doesn't even have anything to do with belief at that point. If you realize it to be an absolute truth, then nothing anyone can say will be able to shake you off it anyway. And no one has to say anything to you. No one has to tell it to you. So that's something that has to be realized. And again, as I said, it's not like on a human level or even on like some psychological level where you're imagining yourself to be a spiritual being who's not the body, but you still believe yourself to exist. See, the problem with solipsism is that you'll start believing that I am the only person that exists, but you still believe that you exist. That's the problem of when the mind adopts it as an ideology, is that they think no one else exists, but they still think that they exist. But no, not even you exist. You see? It's just the absolute self. And the absolute self, in a sense, is nothingness. It's just existence itself. It's just truth itself. That's what they're trying to point to. It's not personal. It's more impersonal. So it's not something you should adopt on the ego level and start using it to manipulate and scheme, or using it as a justification to harm yourself because you're feeling depressed or something. Because if you're going to do that, then you would have probably found some other ideology to do that anyway. And you're just using it as an excuse, and you don't even believe it anyway. You didn't even realize it for yourself. It doesn't even seem that way to you. You're just believing it now because some guy on the internet said it. You have to remember, like, I'm just like me or anyone else, just people on the internet speaking. That's it. And yeah, also, like, for example, I was just watching a video as well where someone was kind of trying to debunk what Actualized was saying. And that's kind of also what inspired me to make this video as well. Was because he was kind of showing all the negative things that happened after he released that video, people trying to kill themselves and all of this kind of stuff, and people going into, like, I don't know, psychotic episodes, or starting to do all kinds of crazy things because they started thinking they were the only person that existed. But all the things that he was saying wasn't really debunking it. They were all just things that I kind of explained in the last two videos as well, where it's like, oh, so then you're just saying like, oh, so then it's like he's just saying that he's the only one that exists and all his viewers are just NPC cardboard cutouts, and then if what he's saying is true, then what would be the point of me making this video? It was all based on, it was, as I said, explained in my past videos, that really is fear. I just told you, don't believe in solipsism, but what's really going to make you reject it, even as a possibility, is actually fear. Like, it's never, people can never actually come up with a real logical explanation to debunk it. They'll just say, oh yeah, like, oh, those other people, it's sick what you're saying. You're trying to say that they don't have their own lives, that only you have your life, and all of this kind of stuff. Like, but see, you can't even prove that they have their own lives. You're just assuming that, and you're too scared to even admit the possibility. Because really, how could you, like, I'm not saying that it's, I'm not, as I said, I don't want you to believe it, and I'm not trying to tell you, oh, it's absolutely certain that, like, absolute solipsism is true, but how could you ever deny, like, how could you honestly deny that it's a possibility that no one you see exists, that you're imagining that? How can you actually verify it? You can only verify by asking them. And if you're imagining them, see, you can only say, that if they respond back to me, then I know for certain that they have consciousness because they're responding back. That's only true if you know for certain that they exist outside in an external world. But you can't prove that there's an external world, and you can't prove that they're outside of your mind because you've only experienced your mind. You can't escape your own perception. So I'm not. So again, I don't want you to adopt as a belief. I'm not necessarily saying that those people don't exist, but at least accept just the blatant fact that you can never know for certain. And really, that's what solipsism actually, the definition is. It's not even saying that you're the only mind to exist for certain. It says that it's certain that your own mind, that's the only thing you can know for certain, that your own mind exists. You can't know for certain that other minds exist. It's not even saying it's absolutely certain that other minds don't exist. It's saying that it's absolutely certain that you can never know. You can only assume and believe that other minds exist. And the reason why why you won't budge on that, and why you're so rigid with that belief and assumption, is actually out of fear. It's out of fear that it might be true, and the ramifications of what that might mean. Sorry, I know I said that was the end twice, but I just finished watching that video as well. I think the name of the channel is Cans Husness or something like that. But yeah, and see another thing, he posted something on Actualize forum. I don't want to sound like I'm just backing up Actualize, because I used to watch him back in the day. Like, I barely watch Actualize anymore. Like, I really don't care about that. It's just that this is what I've realized for myself as well. One of the reasons why he said he debunked it, because he posted something on Actualize's forum saying, if you don't exist, then you'll just send me £500 every month because like money doesn't exist. You don't exist, so you won't mind just sending me all your money. Like, that's not how it works. See, as I explained in my past video, if you're the absolute self, right? And as I said, you're infinite, so you're trying to experience finiteness, finity, because you can't create what's already been created. So you can only create what isn't. So that's why it can only create the relative plane and an illusory plane, because the truth is true. So the only thing it can create is something that's half true and half false. Like, it has to split itself and create both sides. It has to create self and other, and then you're always going to be in the self position, and then you can only experience other as other. That's why you can never experience their mind, because really, as I explained, it's solipsism. But since you created this dream to deceive yourself into experiencing a limited form, you need the dream that you're experiencing for you to experience a dream. It needs to have laws that it follows. Like, even if there's different kinds of laws and conditions, like you can have some dreams at nighttime where you're flying, or you're going backwards in time, but it's still got which might be different to this waking dream, which follows like linearity. You know what I'm saying? The 3 dimensions, all of this kind of stuff, laws of physics. So the laws or the conditions can be different, like in your dream state, or if you take psychedelic drugs or any kind of thing. If you go to another universe, there's always different conditions everywhere, right? And then it might seem like that nighttime dream doesn't have laws because you can go through walls, but then that's just the law. The law is that you can go through walls. But my whole point is that any dream, even if there's some more inconsistent dreams and more consistent dreams, there's some more contradictory dreams and some congruent dreams. But even if a dream is contradictory, it has to be congruent with its own contradictoriness, like its own contradictory nature. It has to remain congruent with that. If the whole dream is contradictory, it has to remain contradictory congruently. So even if something is a dream that you're experiencing is more illogical, it has to remain, like, the logic has to remain illogical for the dream to be illogical. Because if it's, that's why I've explained in my past, I've explained this many times, the dualities, how the negative sides negate themselves in the absolute level. But essentially, the whole point what I'm just trying to explain here is that you've created this dream to deceive yourself. The dreams must follow laws. All the dreams which are different can have different laws, but the specific dream that you're dreaming right now of being a human with other humans, for it to be congruent with the dream that you're dreaming, where it appears like there are other humans with their own consciousnesses and their own awareness, to make it congruent with the laws, where there are finite resources, there's finite energy, you need to replenish your body, which is your vehicle in this dream, and they have their own body, so they need to get their own, they need to replenish themselves, even if it's all within a dream. Are you trying to tell me that you've had a dream at night where I don't know, let's say you weren't, like, where you weren't having sex, or you and your mates weren't having sex with loads of women, or you and your mates weren't having a feast? They were dream characters, but they were still replenishing themselves because it had to remain congruent with the laws of the dreams of how it was appearing. So Leo, even if Leo is an imagination, like an imaginary character that you as God are imagining, to make the dream consistent with this human, like, construct that you believe yourself to be, which you as God want to keep this dream the same that you're experiencing to remain in this finite form, and it must remain consistent. So, like, with the memories that you're imagining and what you're seeing right now, everything has to, like, remain consistent to some degree to even sell the dream to you. So Leo, even if he's imaginary, he's going to be congruent with the dream that he is a human who also needs to replenish himself. So he's not going to send you money for free for no reason, even if he is imaginary, because you're imagining a human who you think is not imaginary. So then they're not going to act as if they are imaginary. They're going to act as if they're not imaginary. So, like, even if Leo doesn't have his own consciousness, to keep the congruency of the dream, like, no human would just send you £500 every week or every month. Like, no human, whether they're a solipsist or not. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's the dream that you're dreaming. And furthermore, it can still be the case that there are many minds having their own individual dreams within, and it's all just one self that is containing, it's just the self looking at all the different perspectives, as I've explained before. That can still be the case. That's kind of just, see, a lot of these things are just anthropomorphizations, because you can't communicate absolute truth through words. So that's why everything you say is, in a sense, slightly false. But it's not even necessarily the case that they even have their own minds. That could also just be another layer that you're imagining, just to give more congruency and more belief. Like, the devil is in the details. That's how you make it believable. How do people get viewers hooked in it when you're watching a film? It's all the details, it's all the little things that get you, like, hooked. You start zooming in and investing on the little details. That's where you get lost. You get lost in the details. But obviously, if someone has completely rejected solipsism, as I said, I'm not trying to get you to believe it, but if you've completely even rejected it as a possibility, then everything I'm saying is going to sound like it's just a justification. But I just want you to at least just, like, look at it clearly for yourself. not out of fear of what you want it to be. Because realize, yes, you do want your family to be real. You do want your friends to be real. All right, cool. Yes, you do want them to be real. But put that aside though, because realize that what you want as a human doesn't have anything to do with the truth of the matter. So put that aside, forget about what you want it to be, and actually check. As I said, I don't even want to try and impose that it's 100% necessarily absolutely true that you are the only conscious being and no one else exists. You're imagining all of them. But at least just realize and accept that actually it is, like when you take solipsism as its real definition, where you're saying it's only certain, you can only be certain that your own mind or consciousness exists, and you can't be certain of anyone else's, that's actually 100% true. You can't deny that. Like, actually, you can't deny that. That's important. How can you deny that? You can only assume or believe that they exist. So yeah, I know I said it for the third time, but I think I'm gonna leave it there. Third time should be the charm.